The Xa'thari delegation arrived at human space with all the pomp their species could muster. Their vessel, the Eternal Harmonic, was a masterwork of biological engineering, a living ship grown over 3 centuries, its hull rippling with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of ancient glory and conquered worlds. Admiral Keth'zar stood at the observation deck, her 4 eyes scanning the approaching human station with barely concealed disgust. It was a thing, an ugly geometric thing of metal and hard angles, spinning gracefully in the void like some primitive's toy. No organic curves, no singing membranes, no beauty, just cold, dead matter bolted together. Barbarians, she whispered to her second Lieutenant Morsha. They've been spacefaring for what, 200 cycles? And look at this. Construction. Morsha clicked his mandibles in agreement. The reports say they're requesting admission to the Galactic Assembly, Admiral. They claim they've met the requirements. Requirements. Keth'zar's laugh was like wind through crystal. They've barely left their own star system. They have no tributary species, no client races. They haven't even achieved biological synthesis. She turned from the viewport, her robes flowing around her like liquid silk. This will be brief. We deny them, note their potential for future consideration in perhaps another 1,000 cycles, and return home. The docking procedure was clumsy. The humans used mechanical arms and magnetic clamps like children playing with blocks. Keth'zar's lip curled as she felt the shudder through her ship's nervous system. Eternal Harmonic trembled with discomfort at the rough contact. The airlock hissed open. The human delegation stood waiting. Keth'zar had seen humans in holographic records, of course, but seeing them in person was different. They were shorter than expected, built like predators, forward-facing eyes, visible teeth, that strange hairless skin. They wore uniforms of dark blue with golden insignia, perfectly pressed and formal. The one in front stepped forward. Admiral Keth'zar, I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Authority. Welcome to Orbital Station Unity. We're honored by your presence. The translation was perfect, fed directly into Keth'zar's auditory center through quantum entanglement. The human's actual voice was rougher, with that peculiar undertone all mammalian species carried, the sound of wet air being pushed through meat. Primitive. Captain Chen, Keth'zar inclined her head precisely 1 degree, the minimum required by diplomatic protocol for a species not yet recognized by the Assembly. Shall we proceed? The conference room was, like everything human, aggressively utilitarian. Plain walls, a long table, chairs designed for function rather than art. But it was clean, and the gravity was adjusted to Xa'thari preference without being asked. A small courtesy, but noted. We've reviewed your petition, Keth'zar began once they were seated. She projected her voice with the full harmonics of her rank, letting it fill the room with authority. And we must confess ourselves puzzled. Captain Chen's face remained neutral. Humans were surprisingly difficult to read, their features so rigid, their expressions so subtle. Puzzled, Admiral? Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel, yes. You've established small colonies on 6 worlds. You've developed quantum communication and basic energy manipulation. Keth'zar let each point hang in the air like an accusation. But you bring nothing to the Assembly, no client species to vouch for you, no unique resources we cannot obtain elsewhere, no technological innovations of note. She leaned forward. Tell me, Captain, why should we allow humanity a voice in galactic affairs? Something flickered in Chen's eyes. Anger? Amusement? The captain folded her hands on the table. With respect, Admiral, I think you're asking the wrong question. Keth'zar's antennae stiffened. Excuse me? You're asking what humanity brings to the Assembly, what we can offer you. Chen's voice remained level, but there was steel underneath. But the Assembly Charter states that any sapient species capable of faster-than-light travel has the right to petition for membership. Not the privilege, the right. A technicality. The foundation of law. Keth'zar felt her secondary hearts accelerate with irritation. You are children playing with fire, Captain. The Assembly has existed for 40,000 cycles. We have seen species rise and fall. We have fought wars that would make your sun look dim. We have earned our place in the cosmos. She gestured around the sparse room. What have you earned? 2 centuries of fumbling with rocket fuel? 3 centuries, actually, Chen said quietly. But who's counting? The human second, a tall man with dark skin and graying hair, leaned forward. Admiral, may I speak frankly? Keth'zar waved a hand. Please. You're right. We're young. We're inexperienced. By your standards, we've accomplished nothing remarkable. His eyes met hers without flinching, a predator's directness. But we've survived things you cannot imagine. Have you? It wasn't a question. The man, his nameplate read Colonel Marcus Webb, nodded slowly. Have you ever read Earth's history, Admiral? I've reviewed the summary reports. The summaries don't do it justice. Webb stood, pacing to the viewport where Earth hung below them, blue and white and achingly beautiful. For 95% of our existence as a species, we lived in caves. We were prey animals, Admiral. Lions killed us, bears killed us, disease killed us, starvation killed us. We had no claws, no armor, no venom, no natural weapons worth mentioning. Yes, Keth'zar interrupted. A typical prey species origin, not uncommon. Webb continued as if she hadn't spoken. We weren't the strongest, we weren't the fastest, we weren't the most numerous. He turned to face her, and there was something in his expression that made Keth'zar's combat glands twitch. So we became the most stubborn. Stubborn. We chased animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We ran them down over days, weeks. We broke them by refusing to stop. Webb's voice was matter of fact, but the words hung heavy. When ice ages came, we survived. When supervolcanoes erupted, we survived. When plagues killed half our population, we survived. We've been through 6 extinction-level events, Admiral. We're still here. Ancient history, Keth'zar said, but she found herself leaning forward despite herself. Chen stood now too, joining Webb at the viewport. 1,200 years ago, we split the atom. Within 20 years, we built weapons that could destroy our entire species. We came within minutes, Admiral, of ending our own existence, multiple times. The nuclear age, Keth'zar acknowledged. Most species go through similar phases. Did they stockpile 50,000 weapons? Did they hold their collective finger on the trigger for 50 years straight? Chen's voice carried an edge now. We stood on the brink of self-annihilation for half a century and chose every single day not to jump. Morsha spoke up for the first time. But you came close. The records show several near launches. Yes, Chen said simply. We came close, but close doesn't count. We're still here. Keth'zar felt the conversation slipping away from her control. She reasserted her authority with a sharp tone. This is all very dramatic, but it doesn't change the fundamental facts. You lack the resources, the territory, and the power to warrant a seat at the Assembly. You would be a minor voice, easily overruled, with no stake in most decisions. Ah, Captain Chen smiled, and there was something predatory in it that made Keth'zar's skin prickle. Now we get to the real issue. You don't think we deserve a seat at the table. I think you would be wasting everyone's time. Then let me tell you a story, Admiral. Chen sat back down, gesturing for Keth'zar to join her. 3 years ago, a mining vessel named the Prometheus was conducting operations in the Kuiper Belt. Standard work, hunting for rare earth elements, water ice, that sort of thing. They picked up a distress signal. I failed to see. The signal was from a Xa'thari scout ship. That stopped Keth'zar cold. Impossible. We have no vessels in human space. You did 3 years ago. The Silent Wing, I believe it was called. Chen pulled up a holographic display. It had suffered a catastrophic failure in its biological systems, some kind of infection that attacked the ship's nervous tissue. It was dead in space, losing atmosphere, life support failing, 6 crew members aboard. The image showed a Xa'thari vessel, its surface mottled with necrosis, venting atmosphere from multiple breaches. Keth'zar's blood ran cold. She remembered. The Silent Wing had been declared lost with all hands, presumed destroyed by an asteroid collision. No distress signal had ever been received. We didn't receive any transmission, she said carefully, because your ship was dying. Its communication organs were compromised. The signal was weak, fragmented. Chen's voice softened. But the Prometheus heard it, and they came. The hologram shifted, showing a bulky human mining vessel approaching the dying ship. They had no bio-support facilities. They didn't have compatible medical equipment. They couldn't even breathe the same atmosphere mix. Chen looked directly at Keth'zar. Do you know what they did? Keth'zar said nothing. They went in anyway. They cut through your ship's hull with plasma torches. They found your people dying in the dark, drowning in their own fluids because the ship's respiratory systems had failed, and they carried them out, one by one, in their arms. The hologram showed humans in bulky suits moving through twisted corridors, carrying Xa'thari crew members who looked like fragile insects in their arms. They couldn't save 2 of them. The infection had progressed too far, but 4 survived. 4 of your people are alive because a human mining crew risked everything, their ship, their lives, their mission, to save strangers of a species they'd never even met. Keth'zar's throat felt tight. I was not informed of this. No, Colonel Webb said quietly. You weren't, because the survivors were returned through back channels. Someone in your command structure decided it would be embarrassing to admit that humans had saved Xa'thari lives, easier to declare them lost and move on. The silence in the room was absolute. Keth'zar's mind raced. She pulled up her own records, accessing classified files she rarely touched. There, buried in medical logs, 4 crew members from the Silent Wing listed as recovered from equipment malfunction. No details, no explanation, no mention of how or who had saved them. Someone had known. Someone had hidden it. Why? She asked finally. Why would they risk so much for strangers? Captain Chen's expression was unreadable. Because they were dying, and we could help. What other reason do we need? That's irrational. Is it? Webb asked. We have a saying on Earth, Admiral. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We did something. Keth'zar felt something shift in her understanding, like a fundamental constant of the universe adjusting itself. She looked at these humans, these young, primitive, stubborn humans, and saw them differently. You could have used this, she said slowly. This rescue. You could have demanded payment, political favor, recognition. The lives of Xa'thari crew members would have been significant leverage. We could have, Chen agreed, but that's not why we did it. Then why tell me now? Because you asked what we bring to the assembly. Chen stood, her posture straight and formal. We bring this, the belief that intelligence deserves protection, that life, any life, has inherent value, that when someone is drowning you pull them out before asking if they can pay you back. She met Keth'zar's eyes. We bring the stubborn, irrational, absolutely human conviction that we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. Morsha clicked his mandibles nervously. Admiral, the charter... I know the charter, Lieutenant. Keth'zar stood slowly, her mind working through implications and possibilities. Tell me, Captain Chen, if we were to approve your petition, what would humanity do with a seat in the assembly? Chen considered the question carefully. We'd listen, we'd learn, and when we saw someone drowning in the dark between stars, we'd go get them, just like always. Even if it cost you? Especially then. Keth'zar looked at her second. Lieutenant Morsha, record my recommendation. Petition approved pending full assembly vote. Sponsorship by the Xa'thari Collective with full diplomatic recognition. Morsha's mandibles dropped open. Admiral, with respect, this is highly irregular. So is hiding the truth about who saved our people. Keth'zar turned back to the humans. The assembly has been ancient for a long time, Captain. Perhaps we've forgotten what it means to be young and foolish and brave. She inclined her head, not 1 degree this time, but a full, formal bow. Humanity will bring fresh eyes to old problems. That has value. Captain Chen bowed in return. Thank you, Admiral. We won't waste this opportunity. See that you don't. Keth'zar moved toward the door, then paused. Captain? Those 4 crew members from the Silent Wing. Do you know what happened to them? Chen smiled. They recovered fully. Last I heard, one of them was petitioning to serve as a liaison to the human diplomatic corps, said she wanted to understand the species that saved her life. Poetic, Keth'zar murmured. She left the room with Morsha trailing behind her, his confusion evident in every step. As they walked back to their ship, Morsha finally spoke. Admiral, I don't understand. We came here to deny their petition. Why did you approve it? Keth'zar was silent for a long moment, watching the human station rotate against the stars. That ugly, functional, perfect thing they'd built with their clever hands and stubborn hearts. Because, Lieutenant, I've seen 1,000 species rise and fall. I've seen empires that spanned galaxies crumble to dust. I've seen beauty and horror beyond measure. She turned to face him. But in all my cycles, I've never seen a species risk everything for nothing, for strangers, for the simple principle that life matters. But they're so young. Yes, young and foolish and stubborn. Keth'zar allowed herself a small smile. The assembly has been wise and ancient and set in its ways for 40,000 cycles. Perhaps it's time we remembered what it's like to be young and foolish. Perhaps we need someone to remind us that there's more to civilization than power and territory and age. She stepped into the airlock, feeling Eternal Harmonic welcome her home with a warm pulse of recognition. Log the recommendation, Lieutenant, and add a personal note. The humans have something we lost long ago. They still believe they can make a difference. Can they, Admiral? Keth'zar looked back at the human station one last time, at that spinning monument to human audacity and determination. I don't know, Lieutenant, but I'm curious to find out. And in 40,000 cycles, I've learned that curiosity is the most valuable asset any species can possess. The airlock sealed, the docking clamps released. The Eternal Harmonic pulled away from Unity Station with far more grace than it had arrived with, perhaps recognizing something in these crude metal structures, some kinship between the ancient living ship and these newcomers who had built their home among the stars through sheer force of will. Inside the station, Captain Chen watched the Xa'thari vessel depart, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what might have been approval. Colonel Webb stood beside her. Think they'll actually sponsor us? Yes, Chen said with certainty. They'll sponsor us. We reminded them of something important. What's that? Chen smiled. That the measure of a civilization isn't how much power you have. It's what you do when someone needs help, and helping them costs you everything. She turned from the viewport. Come on, we've got 3 more delegations arriving this week. Time to show them what humanity can do. They left the observation deck, their footsteps echoing on metal floors, that primitive, functional, beautiful sound of humans walking confidently into a future they'd built with their own hands. Behind them, Earth continued its eternal rotation, blue and white and green, the cradle of a species that had clawed its way up from the mud to stand among the stars. A species that had learned that the universe was vast and cold and uncaring, and had responded not with despair, but with defiance. Because that's what humans did. They stood in the darkness between stars and lit fires. They saw the impossible and called it a challenge. They met the ancient powers of the galaxy and said, with all the audacity their young species could muster, we belong here too. And slowly, grudgingly, inevitably, the galaxy was beginning to agree.